Good evening. Thank y'all all for being here. It's great to see everyone. Uh, with such a small group, I normally would say just come at me with questions as we go through the presentation, but it is being live streamed, so I assume that y'all want me to stick with the format, so I will do that as well. Now, I'll be upfront with you. I could talk about marketing for days. I'm very passionate about it. I love my job. I love what I do. I'm one of those people that when I'm with my friends and somebody says, I was just talking about going to Key West and now it's all I see on my phone and computer. I think that's so creepy. I'm like, no, Karen, that is not creepy. That is brilliant. It is behavioral targeting and it's relevant information. And I could go on and on. But you're also lucky because I have a really low attention span. So I will not be talking about marketing for days. I will condense this for everyone. And like I said, we'll have time for questions after. So I am with Founders Federal Credit Union. It was established in 1950, and we're at 4.8 billion in assets with 270,000 members, 850 employees, and 45 locations. We have grown exponentially in about the last 20 years, like from 14 branches to 45. So we've seen a lot of growth, again, in the past 20 years. So that's been great. Now, some history. So we are big Gamecocks. I have deep roots at USC. I graduated from here in 1994 in what was then the College of Journalism, and now it's College of Information and Communications. I was an ad PR major, and you can imagine that I was very thrilled when both of my daughters chose USC. I don't know that it was really much of a choice now that I think now that I think about it. Rory graduated in 2023. You've already met her, and she graduated in public relations. And Addie is currently a marketing major in Darla Moore. So both of them followed a little bit in my footsteps. So I take some credit for that. Now, when I was at USC, I was quite the leader on campus. I was president of Omicron Delta Kappa Honor Society. I was the vice president of Alpha Delta Pi. I held positions in student government, and I was actually named Outstanding Senior when I graduated. And I was also always the one to step up at any pre-party to rally everyone when it was time to go to 5 points with my clever slogan, 5 points in 5 minutes. So you can imagine my surprise when people were not beating down my door to offer me a job after graduation. So I returned home and I worked as a waitress, which I highly recommend to anyone to do. And I heard about this opportunity at Founders. So when I interviewed, I learned the job would actually be temporary because one person in the marketing department was going out on maternity leave. So she was also the only person in the whole credit union that used an Apple rather than a PC. So I landed the job that very day with 2 questions. The first question was, do you know how to use an Apple? Check. That was a true statement. The next question was, do you know the software program PageMaker? Check. Yeah, I know that. I didn't because we had trained on Quark Express then in the College of Journalism. But I figured, if you know one design program, you can probably figure out another one. So I went to the bookstore because this was before YouTube or Amazon. I went to the bookstore and I bought a book on how to use PageMaker. I guess it was like PageMaker for Dummies. And I learned it by Monday. Now, I loved my job. It allowed me to be creative, analytical, and share marketing trends with a team. However, when the true marketing specialist came back from maternity leave, she, of course, wanted her job back. So they didn't have a position for me in marketing. They offered me a part-time position. And before I could accept it, the CFO stopped me in the hall one day and said, I know that they're offering you a part-time job in marketing, but I have this job for you. And I know it's not what you want to do, but if you'll do it now and trust me, eventually I will get you to where you need to be. And for some reason, I really trusted him. And so I became an optical imaging specialist. What is that, you might ask? Let me tell you, that is a fancy term for a staple puller. Because you see, this credit union had for 40 years, every document was paper. So every time someone came in to open an account, when they added a checking account or they added a Visa MasterCard or a mortgage, they would just staple all the documents together. Well, now they had purchased this new imaging system and needed some people. I was not the only optical imaging specialist. There were others, and they needed us to pull staples and scan documents. So I did that. And let me tell y'all, I was really good at that. You might be surprised. I can pull some staples. I can scan some documents. In fact, I was racing the other people, and I was winning. Now, they didn't know we were racing. They were not trying to do that. But I knew it was a race. I was beating them all. So it wasn't long after when they created a position for me in marketing. So I returned to marketing because, again, it's my passion to be marketing specialist. Then they asked me to become the first ever business development officer. I did that, and I became vice president of business development as I grew the department. And here's where the story takes a nice turn. So you remember that CFO that stopped me in the hall and asked me to trust him? He became the next president and CEO of Founders. And when he did, his first act, even before he took over, was to promote me to senior VP of marketing. And it completely switched up the marketing department. And of course, I'm CMO now, so I've transitioned to that. So here's where I want to tell you, trust your gut. In everything you do, trust your gut, because a whole lot of times, your gut and your intuition is already ahead of you and knows where you're supposed to be. So I was in charge. Now what? So the first thing I did is I went to the president and CEO, and I said, now you can trust me. You need to trust me now. We were using an ad agency at the time. I said, I want to fire the ad agency. I want to bring everything in-house. I want to hire our own people. And we did. I'll never forget, it was 20 years ago now. And he and I went together, and we told the ad agency, we're not going to use you anymore. We're going to bring things in-house. The head of the ad agency looked me in the eye, and I was younger then, so a little bit intimidating. And he said, you can't do this. I give you 90 days. He said, you don't even know who prints your stuff, because they had control of all our vendors and everything at that point. So, but we fired him, and I have never looked back. It was a great decision. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But I took brand control, and I wanted to come up with a new tagline. And to me, I wanted a tagline that was living and breathing, that we could use a lot of different ways, and one that really conveyed our brand to our members in that they could trust us. And at the end of the day, they could not worry about their money, whether they had money they wanted us to save and invest for them, or whether they had money that they wanted us to loan them. If they just needed money to pay their power bill, I wanted them to be able to relax and know that Founders was on their team. So that's what we've come up with. And that has lasted, I'm happy to say, it has lasted and it withstood the test of time, I believe. Now, I'm not against ad agencies. I don't want you to think that. They certainly have our place in the market. But I felt that hiring the talent and bringing that in-house was the right decision. And here are a few reasons why I want to talk about. First of all, it's more cost efficient. You can practically pay a salary of someone by the time you pay an ad agency to even just do a few campaigns for you. It's transparent. You know exactly how much everything costs. You know exactly how much you're spending, what you're paying the employees, as well as what you're paying any vendors. And there are no upcharges or middlemen that you find with an ad agency. Agility. You can change direction quickly. You can ask for changes, have quick turnaround. You can pull people. I can easily pull somebody off one project, move them to another. You can't do that with an ad agency because they have multiple clients and you aren't their sole priority. At Founders is our sole priority. Also, brand alignment. My team knows our brand. They know who we are, who we stand for, and they're committed to it. So we're able to better control that. Also, communication. I can quickly communicate with my team. I can easily pull them together for brainstorming. We can move quickly and really tie things together quicker because we're right there. We can have immediate feedback. So I wouldn't change that for anything. So I'll give you just a quick rundown of the organization chart in our area. So I have an AVP of Creative Services that manages our Creative Services team. Now, over the years, we have learned new skill sets. We've added audio-visual skills and talents to our team because we're doing more and more of that in-house as well. I have visual media directors, of course, senior graphic designer, and then kind of on the other side, I have an AVP of marketing operations that handles events, day-to-day marketing operations, special projects, and the budget. Um, Also, a marketing research and media coordinator that works with our media vendors and works with our in-house information services team to help us pull data so that we can better market to our members. Community engagement, well, I'm going to talk about that in a little bit too. It's very big for us at Founders. We do a lot in the community. We really try to give back. So we have someone dedicated to make sure we're doing that as well. And something neat we have a financial education manager. And that person, all she does all day is goes out to schools and organizations and groups with free financial literacy. So she's out there in the community telling and helping people about credit and budgeting and investing and all types of topics. So it's something that I really think is unique and sets us apart. So back to some more brand identity though. I take our brand extremely seriously at Founders. I think you have to police your own brand. You can't just let things go. Your brand is what builds trust and dependability, and it has to be consistent across all the channels, across all your branches. Now, sometimes in doing this, I have to be not a nice person. So that's not the fun part of that. We've merged several credit unions over the years, and that can be tough for them to hear this is how our offices are set up, and this is our standard, and your brand's going to go away, and it's going to become the Founders brand now, and we're going to you're going to buy into this brand, and so that can be complicated. I know sometimes we've got some of our branch people here today. I'm so happy to see them. I know sometimes when I walk into a branch, I'm so happy to see them, and I'm just like hugging everybody and everything else, and then my eye darts over, and I'm like, oh, and I know they hate it. They're probably like, why is she here? And I'm like, that registrar's not supposed to be here, but it's good, and it's what I hope they know is it's good for me to be in those branches and see that, because what it does is when I go back, I say, what can we do better? What can we do better to make this process better so that there's no chance of something being old or information out there? And we have wonderful branches and wonderful branch people. I would put them up against anybody. I will say that too right now. A few years ago, a small credit union that happens to be in the Columbia market used Relax in an ad campaign. And so when I'll mention this, I neglected to tell you, one of my proudest moments was I got Relax trademarked. And people said I couldn't do it. They said I had the attorneys tell me that's too common of a word. You are not going to get that trademark. You can't. And so what did I do? I used it consistently. We used it consistently, the same font, the same 3-dotted lips after, every single time. And a few years later, I kept trying. And sure enough, we got it trademarked. So that's a big deal to me. It really is. So anyway, a few years ago, someone sent something to me and said, did you see this ad? They're using Relax. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to very politely email the CEO and explain to them, hey, just a reminder, we own Relax as related to financial institutions. We don't own it everywhere, just financial institutions. And, you're going to have to stop using that. Well, he actually reached out to an attorney for credit unions who reached out to our in-house attorney and basically called me petty and said, what? Almost like I was being a girl about it, to be honest with you. Like, why is she being whiny over this? They're such a big credit union, and we are such a small credit union. We're not hurting Founders for using this term. And I was like, we did not spend all this time, effort, and money to trademark a word just to turn around and let somebody else use it. So I may have very politely suggested that they also go by a thesaurus, but the attorney didn't let me put that in the letter. so we didn't do that. Okay, so here is where you expect me to tell you not to sweat the small stuff and to just relax, because in a year from now, no one's going to remember this. Well, that is so not me. I know my girls are probably sitting here like, what is she even saying that for? Like, that's so not her. To be honest with you, whoever said this probably wouldn't even like me as a person. Like, we probably wouldn't even be friends, because I do sweat the small stuff. It all matters to me. Like, it does in my life, in my real life, and at work. Things matter to me. The details matter to me. And I almost took the thought out because I was like, this perhaps is not my best quality. This may not be a great thing about me So, maybe I won't even say that. But the next morning on the way to work, as I had already thought I was going to take this slide out, I was listening to Bob Iger's memoir. He's the CEO, president of Walt Disney World. He's been there a very long time, actually left and they begged him to come back even. And he said this: sweating the details can show how much you care. Great is often a collection of very small things after all. So I was like, I felt so validated by my new friend, Bob Iger. And I was like, I am going to keep this in there because that may be something people don't necessarily love about me, that I do sweat everything and I do things matter so much to me. But at the end of the day, it's who I am. And I think it's part of why I've been successful and part of why I love what I do. And so I'll give you just a tiny example of that. I'm getting ready to show you our first Super Bowl commercial, which aired a couple of years ago. And we were about to give back $20 million to our members. And we decided to announce it during the Super Bowl commercial. And we also decided to drop 3 different campaigns with special rates and promotions all at the same time. And we wanted to do it at halftime because, we just like to be extra. We like to do all the things at once at Founders. And so timing was very critical. As you know, the Super Bowl is a live event. So you really can't pinpoint when halftime will actually be. So what we did is we decided to pay extra for the commercials. And I know you all know this, but Super Bowl commercial, we did not pay the $11 million, $20 million for the Super Bowl commercial. Every market has some smaller spots that you can buy. So we bought those. They're a little more expensive, but nothing crazy. So anyway, we paid a little extra so that we could guarantee the commercial would air right before halftime. And by doing that, we were able to also put I think a cool line in there that we knew it was going to air. Now, that was the longest Super Bowl of my life because I was sitting there like, please, dear God, let this air when it's supposed to air. All these different people had said it would. But anyway, then during halftime, we manually pushed out all of this advertising because, again, we couldn't time it and automate it. So we had to manually push all our digital stuff out with the help. I've got a vendor here, iHeartMedia's here, and they're a great vendor, and they help us make all this magic happen too all the time. But anyway, and then we were filming a scene, and the scene was going to be, you'll see it in here, a quick shot of the 5 Points mural. And so I told our production company that was working with us on the commercial, we use them consistently, and I said, okay, but when it airs in Spartanburg, I want them to see something in Spartanburg. I want them to see the Spartanburg mural. And when it airs in Rock Hill, they should see Fountain Park. They should see the fountain in Rock Hill. Like, I want our members and our markets to look at this and say, oh, that's here, and be excited to be a part of it. And he went, Nicki, now that is just entirely too much. Like, that is going to be a lot of work and a lot of effort for something that's just going to be seconds. And so we did it. And because, again, I think the little extra is important. So I'm going to play that for you now. And you'll see very quickly. So please notice it, 5 points.
Amazing things happen when people believe in you. And when you're with Founders Federal Credit Union, you're one of our people.
So you can relax, because we'll always have your back. And to show it,
we're returning a $20 million super loyalty bonus to our account holders tomorrow. That's right, $20 million.
So you can get away, make those upgrades.
Or just add to your savings.
Don't have an account with us yet? What are you waiting for? Join Founders today.
So relax and enjoy halftime. You're with Founders.
And then here are just some of the other elements. So it was really multiple campaigns at once. So it was very exciting because it was difficult. And like I said, it was a hugely partly manual process. We had to have, y'all are nodding, there's a lot of planning went into this, right down to, we said, like, tomorrow we're giving back 20 million. Check your accounts in the morning. And then we had ads that said we just gave back. So we switched everything like that. So it was great. And it was very successful. As you can see, we had Immediately, our members did exactly what we told them to. They all checked their accounts. Unfortunately, they did all check their accounts at once, and so we did break Founders Online temporarily, but they got it back up and running fairly quickly. And my favorite part of that was on social media, because we're on that Sprout social media. Some of you will know what that is and everything. So I get alerts on my watch every time Founders is mentioned, every time it's post or anything, and keep up with all that. So that day it was going crazy, and I was almost scared to look when our app went down. But when I looked, people were actually in a good mood about it. Like, they were laughing about it. Our members were saying things like, "Look, Founders told us they were going to give us some money, and look what we did. We went and broke their app." So they were all talking about it online, and it actually turned out positive. And you can see, like I said, it was very successful. So let's talk about a few marketing misconceptions. So things I hear all the time. One, it used to bother me. It doesn't anymore, because I know people don't mean any harm in it. But I can't tell you how many times at work and other places that people say things like, "Well, just give that to Nicki. They'll make it pretty." Or we want to think about doing this promotion, but we'll leave it to you to make it pretty. And marketing is so not about just making something pretty. First of all, the product has to be a good product, a good solid product, because you still have to have something to sell, or you can't do it. Even the best marketing people in the world, you got to have a good product. And luckily at Founders, we do. Marketing is not advertising. Marketing is a whole collection of our brand, data, targeting, product, and it's really the consumer's whole experience with you is what that means. Also, social media is free. It's really not. Sometimes it's free, but a lot of times there's a lot of paid planning and positioning behind social media. Results are immediate. This is going to come back to me, because when I tell iHeart that I want to sign a 3-month contract, they're going to be like, "Now, it takes 6 months. It's not immediate, Nicki." So they're probably going to screenshot this slide. But no, results are not immediate. You do have to give things time. It takes a consumer has to see something a lot of times for it to really resonate with them. And marketing is an expense. This is not a true statement. When done well and right, marketing actually generates revenue. So a lot of times I get asked, and one of the questions on this was kind of talk about a day in your life. So you will see this is blank. It is blank for a reason. I love when people ask me this question. There is no typical day in marketing. And I love that about marketing. It is not the same. There may be days where I walk in and think, "Oh, I don't have any meetings today. It's going to be a catch-up day." And those are usually the days where that's just not the case. And because I do work closely with our entire executive team, I work closely with our president and CEO and our executive vice president, who's also here. And so I don't know when I'm going to get pulled away. We actually have at our corporate headquarters in Lancaster, we actually have a dress for your day dress code. And so that means, some people can wear, they might put jeans on and a nice shirt. They can kind of dress down. I seldom do that, because I might end up on the news by the end of the day. I'm the spokesperson. I really don't know. There have been days where I was sitting at my desk, and my boss's assistant will call and say, "The governor's coming. Bruce wants you to go have lunch." And okay. And so that's what we do. Those of you in here that know me know that I typically travel with sneakers in my car, because I also don't know when I'm going to be walked around a football field for 2 hours. You just don't know what's going to happen. And again, I love that about my job. I don't think I'd like a job where I was just constantly doing the same things all the time. I like that it's ever changing, and it's always busy and always exciting. And I will tell you, every day I walk into work, I get to do this. I can't think of the last time. I mean, some days are better than others. Don't get me wrong. But I can't think of a time where I have walked into work thinking, "Oh, I do not want to be here today," or this, "I'm just not looking forward to this day." I truly love the people I work with. I love the place I work. It's just such a blessing that I do. I walk in thinking I get to be here, and it's a blessing. It really is. But marketing also is not for the complacent. It's for those who are willing to stay curious and take risk and stay relevant. Relevant is one of my favorite words. I say it all the time to my team, to the point where they're starting to say it back to me, like, but it's relevant, like, right is relevant. Because when we post things on social media, and so, it's taken me a while to get everybody to the point where they realize if you post it tomorrow, it is not relevant. Like, now I don't even care about it. I don't even want to see it now. So again, I say that all the time. And we're also marketing to 5 different generations, and we're working with 5 different generations too. So, we're managing that as well. So that's something that's different too. I have seen marketing is ever changing. I think probably maybe more than almost any field I know. You have to stay on top of things. You don't have the luxury of saying, I'm not going to be on social media, or I'm not going to do this, or I'm not going to do this. You don't have that luxury, because you have to be in the know. You have to stay on top of things. You have to see what other people are doing. And so I have gone from printing 4 different newsletters in my career at Founders to where we had teen times, that we would print for our teenage members, and all these different newsletters, to having no newsletters at all. It is ever changing. And now we are search engine optimization. We are search engine management. We're geofencing. And I think it's the coolest thing. I mean, how cool is it? Even when you think you've turned your location off, we can find you. Like, we can. And I think it's so cool. It's so awesome, because we can make it so we serve you an ad just because you were somewhere that day. You could have been at an auto lot that day, and you could get home and go on your computer and, Founders, I am thinking about getting an auto loan. I want to see that ad. So I think it's the coolest thing in the world, I think. And the science and the art behind marketing, because I think it's both. I think it's creativity, but then there's a science to it too, and there are real results that come from it. So anyway, behavioral targeting and generational trends as well. We're trying to stay on top of all that. And we're on TikTok. So again, something else you don't even think about. When TikTok first came out, like, we won't need to be on TikTok, but of course we need to be on TikTok. And here are some videos we're doing with Rocket Sanders right now, and that's something else. NIL, name, image, likeness. I really was not prepared for that. Like, I really didn't know that was something else I was going to have to learn about, but it is. And in marketing, we're now like immersing ourselves into learning more about NIL and how it can be used, and the best way to use that. So I mentioned community engagement earlier, and I'm so proud of what Founders does in our communities. And last year alone, we donated $4.5 million through sponsorships, through charitable donations, through community involvement. And I can't say enough about how much that means to us. Our employees are amazing about it. They want to be involved. They want to give back, and we love to see that. So that's a huge part of our brand, and what another way we get our brand out in the communities and the different ones we serve. So one of the more cooler job duties I have probably is getting to work with our EVP and our CEO in developing athletic sponsorships and contracts. So that's something, there's a lot of negotiation involved in those, and we spend a lot of time doing that. Again, I walk around every college campus we're on, and we're in more places than these. I will physically walk around and be like, we want a sign there, we want this here, where can we put our name, where can we be the most visual on this campus, at this university, and here are just a few of the ways we're doing it here. Yes, I do go to Clemson sometimes. I'll tell you a funny story. Earlier this year, we were in Clemson. We were negotiating the contract there, and so I put my orange on. I have a friend, I borrowed some big tiger earrings, put those on, and they took us to the basketball game. And I had no idea our seats were actually on the court. They were courtside. I mean, so I was getting sweat on me, and it was an ESPN game that went into triple overtime. And the whole entire time my phone is blowing up. Of course, I wasn't looking at it, but it was all my friends sending me pictures of me, like, you're at Clemson. What are you doing at Clemson? Like, you're on TV, and in my big tiger earrings. So I was like, oh man, of course. And then one time I was on Tiger Talk Radio, and it got put on social media, and it kind of, it didn't go viral, but it spread a good bit to the point where my mom texted me, and she said, "Honey, what you won't do for money." but we have a great relationship there too, and that's part of my job is finding the right balance in for all of our members, and to be supportive of all of our universities that are in our market areas. So it's something I love to do too. Now, I know one person in here who's thinking about going into marketing, so I'm going to wrap up with this slide. I did want to, well, two for sure. So I did want to throw this slide in there. So if you are thinking about a career in marketing or switching to a career in marketing, these are skills that you definitely need to have or be looking into. Certainly creativity, you need to be able to come up with ideas. Although sometimes there are times where people expect you to come up with those ideas on the spot, like in meetings, or like, what should we do? And I'm like, you should give me a little bit of time to think about that, and we'll come back to you. Communication, you have to have strong writing, strong communication skills, analytical thinking. You have to be able to apply data to truly market things. You have to be able to use the data you have. You have to be willing to look at demographics and everything else to really target who you're supposed to target. I mean, gone are the days where we used to send a gazillion mail pieces to everybody that lived anywhere near a founder's office. You can't do that anymore. You gotta really be thoughtful about your marketing efforts. Definitely adaptability, staying current with trends, being able to switch and go different directions. Collaboration. I can't think of a department at Founders that we don't work with, that we aren't pulled in with. So you have to be willing to collaborate and take ideas and really help people. I really consider our department to be more support staff than anything else. Like we're here for our branches. We're here for the credit union as a whole. What can we do to make all of us look better, to build our brand? And then also crisis management. You have to be able to respond swiftly and strategically to unexpected challenges. I'm on the crisis team at Founders, and certainly, you know, think about COVID. That was I mean, the minute that happened, we were meeting first thing in the morning, we were meeting last thing at night. We still went to work, and we sent some of our back office employees home for a while, but our branches were still open, and they were doing service out in the drive-through, and we wanted to be there for them. And so we had to, you know, immediately get all the stay 6 feet apart or whatever it was, and the shields in our branches, and communicate with people. And so that was something you really don't think, who even thought we'd go through a global pandemic, but that it affects your job and work. And so you have to be able to be ready to do all that as well. So with that being said, are there any questions?
I actually do have one. Have you seen, like, with more, like, the more money you invest, are there more results? Has there been kind of like an upwards trend with that, or no?
As far as like in our communities, you think?
Yeah.
I think so, and I think again part of that is, and we vary the way we do that. As a matter of fact, one of our initiatives this year is going to be to really sit down and look at all our giving in each market area, and what our asset size is in that market area, to help us see if there's a better plan for doing these. But then also sometimes when you go into a new market, you may not have a return there yet, but you want to do things to make a splash and get your name out. So we do some of that as well. So.
Have you seen a vast amount of increase since the old days of paper versus social media?
Well, I think that has varied too, because back when we were using paper, it worked. And it was because people were getting everything in their mail then, or everything. That was before email even. So, you know, as technology becomes more sophisticated, we have to become more sophisticated as well and just change our methods. So, but we also, looking at the generational part, we also have to remember that we do have members that are not looking at social media. We do have members that, you know, still prefer to get things in the mail sometimes. So we have to think about all that as well.
I was going to ask that question. How do you balance sort of that generational outreach, specifically around like the money that you're spending? How do you do that? How do you look at each generation and target them?
Well, so what we do have some great vendors that help us with that as far as where to reach which demographic. And a lot of times we go by some of our member usage. Like we can tell how many people are online, how many people are using the app, how many people still get paper statements, that sort of thing. So we're able to look at all that as well. Yes.
Brand consistency. When you're changing like your logos and your colors and you're changing like the word and making that consistent, how do you get everyone on board? Say if you're trying to change the entire city brand, they're used to that old way. How do you go about that process?
Well, I think first, in any, you're speaking generically, not necessarily founders, right? I think first you have to get buy-in. And I think it's so important to go talk to people and explain things and get them excited about it. I think it's important, to share with them your story and what's behind it and why this is chosen and what's your history with this logo. What you got to get them on board so that and then by the end of it, if you do it well, they're helping you, because that's how I feel with our team. I feel like the different market execs and the different branch employees and team members out in Spartanburg. I mean, I'm not in Spartanburg every day. I don't see all our stuff in Spartanburg. They're the ones coming back to me saying, hey, Burns High School, I'm using Burns as an example. This is not the case. Burns High School has an old logo. Or you might want to check that sign. It looks pretty faded now. They're the ones coming back to me. So if you do it right and really get the buy-in, everybody on the team will care about it as much as you do. And so, I mean, they're the ones bringing me if they see if they see relaxed used somewhere and everything. So, but now I just send that to our trademark attorney and let them deal with it. So I don't try to do the nice email anymore. So anyway, so that's a great question. And we're fortunate in that in my time at Founders, we never had to change. We never changed the whole logo. We did tweak it one time because it used to be more of an outline. The whole Founders Federal Credit Union was more of an outline, and it was awful to embroider. It's not still a complicated logo to embroider, as the Alumni Association knows, but it was really difficult to reproduce a lot of times. And one day I was just like, oh, why do we use this font? Like I wish we could change this font. And it dawned on me, I can change the font. Like I'm CMO, I can change this font. So we did. We changed the font, but that was just like a little tweak in it. Now, one challenge is when we go into markets, like for example, we have a on-campus office at Russell House and at Clemson. So we do take a few liberties. We have a style guide where we keep up with everything and our logo standards and our tagline standards, and we have sub-brands as well. So we also have a wealth management division, an insurance division, and we still handle their marketing, but their logos are a little different and their colors are different. But we keep all that in our style guide so that we always know how we're doing it. But we do take some liberties when we go on these college campuses. So for example, we do like the orange logo when in Clemson. We do more of the garnet and black when we're at USC functions, just because we feel like it flows better with their look and feel, and it's not like the stark blue coming out. So we do some of that. Yes?
What you were talking about balancing your marketing ideas with looking at the data. So what's the liberty you have? Like say you rolled out the 20 million and you got the commercials and then you have the slide with the return on the investment. What part of your team do you meet with to say, okay, if we hit these kind of numbers, it's worth it. If we hit these kind of numbers, is that something that you have to pre-sell buy-in and the team helps determine like what is that return on, to where you like they love you and you keep your job and keep moving forward? Or
Very important. That is very important.
So walk me through that process when you're making big leap of educated with your career in faith, but you're wanting to do something big. What's the process of deciding the best route?
When it's as big as Super Bowl was and all that encompassed there, then certainly that's something that I would present to our executive management team. We meet probably a couple times a month. And then we also have the senior management team that meets. But that's something I would take to exec and go ahead and get the buy-in and the budgeting kind of in the works. With Super Bowl, that is something we also took to our board of directors. And so I'm fortunate in that I'm not micromanaged to the extent that I have to say, this is exactly what this is going to cost, and this is what I project the return to be. I have a lot of trust and a lot of leeway there, which I'm fortunate, but I know how important it is to present the results after. And I'm not afraid to present results and say, this didn't turn out like I wanted it to, so we're going to tweak it next time, or we're not going to do it at all next time, or this is what we're going to do differently. And I think, and again, I keep going back to iHeartMedia. As a matter of fact, right now we're running a campaign, and the numbers aren't where they should be right now. And so I immediately was like, is it our messaging? And the great thing about vendors like this and about the world we live in now is you can do a couple of different ads. And you can tweak. You never could do that with paper. You can never do that with a flyer or a mailer. But now we can immediately change a concept. We can change keywords on an ad, and we can track what's the movement here. Did our members respond more to this one or this one? And it helps us not only currently, but going forward too, I think. Anything else? All right. Well, thank y'all so much for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. Like I said, I love talking. You can probably tell I love talking about marketing. So it's nice to be able to share with y'all. So thank you.